I've lost 50 kilos and I've helped clients lose as much as 30. Today, we're going to go through 3 different approaches to fat loss: weight loss, cutting, and my own approach. We'll cover what each one is, and by the end, you'll know which is best for you. Approach 1: weight loss. The average person today is overweight, and that's because of convenience. Everything is easier, and our lives are more comfortable, but that also makes us lazy. We're less active, and we don't make the right choices because the unhealthy options are generally easier. Everyone looks in the mirror and knows they need to change, but few actually do. Those who do, though, will usually follow this approach. So weight loss is flexible. You're trying to lose fat, but you're not in a rush. It's more about making gradual changes that last. So like when it comes to nutrition, you try to make better food choices over time. So let's say you currently have cereal for breakfast, then 2 sugars in your coffee, and then a breakfast bar. Instead of cutting all that out completely, you could start by swapping the breakfast bar for a banana, then the 2 sugars for a 0 calorie sweetener. And once you get into a habit of those, you could then swap the cereal for something like granola or porridge. And when it comes to training, there's no particular training routine you need to follow. It's more about just getting healthier, and you lose fat as a result of that. So if going to the gym is your thing, go to the gym. If it's going for a run, go for a run. If it's playing a sport, play a sport. Just be more active. The weight loss approach is good for the average person because it's flexible, less stressful, and the results you make will likely last. You can go out for meals and skip training days if you're busy, but you also have to accept that progress will be slower. You might lose 10 kilos in 6 months, whereas if you were stricter, you could have done the same in 3. And that's where cutting comes in. Approach 2: cutting. So cutting is taken from the bodybuilding lifestyle. Bodybuilders will spend most of the year bulking to pack on as much muscle as possible. But as they do, they'll also gain fat. So in the summer or whenever it is, before they get on stage at a bodybuilding show, they'll do a cut. And the purpose of that is to retain their muscle whilst losing as much fat as possible. But cutting is strict. You're trying to lose fat in a very tight deadline, which means you have to be very precise. So when it comes to nutrition, you'll be tracking calories and trying to hit your macros. Protein will be high, carbs and fats will be low. So you'd be eating lean proteins, starchy carbohydrates, and high volume fruits and vegetables. So for example, you'd have porridge and blueberries in the morning, a tuna salad in the afternoon, and in the evening you'd have chicken, potatoes with spinach. Then when it comes to exercise, you have to weight train. You're in a big calorie deficit and you're trying to retain as much muscle as you can. So you'd be trying to hit each muscle group twice per week in 4 or more training sessions. By doing that, you tell your body you only want to lose fat and to keep all the muscle. And as you go deeper into your cut, you'll also have to throw in more cardio. But cutting isn't fun for most people. Like you can't go out to eat because you don't have enough calories. You're always tired and hungry. You spend a lot of time thinking about food and even more time in the gym. But it's only temporary because in 12 weeks you can lose as much as 12 kilos. Then you could go back to your usual lifestyle. The issue then, though, is you risk putting all that weight back on. Approach 3: my approach. I've always been into the gym, so my approach to fitness takes a lot of inspiration from bodybuilding, like the cycle of bulking and cutting. But as we talked about, a traditional cut might not work for the average guy because they might be able to lose 12 kilos in 12 weeks, but once they reach their goal, they fall back into their usual lifestyle and put all that weight back on. That's because they didn't give themselves enough time for behavior change, or they just didn't want to. They were only looking for short-term results. That's where my approach is different. My approach is for those who want fast but lasting results. To do that, we combine elements of both cutting and weight loss, and it's best explained with an example. Let's say you want to lose 20 kg. Instead of doing that in one go, you break it down into sprints, and in between each sprint, you have a period of rest. So you could do 12 weeks on and 4 weeks off, or whatever works for you. And then you might do that 3 or 4 times to lose that 20 kilos. And the difference between a sprint and a cut is that you're not trying to be perfect from the get-go. With each sprint, you're trying to push yourself to be better. So let's say you're doing 3 sprints to lose that 20 kilos, and each sprint is 12 weeks. And in between each sprint, you have 4 weeks of rest. When it comes to nutrition, in the first sprint, you might just worry about tracking calories and not macros or food choices. Then in the second sprint, you might start worrying about macros on top of tracking calories. Then in the third sprint, you worry about tracking calories, macros, and food choices. Well, let's say for training, in the first sprint, you might just do 3 days of weight training and 3 days of cardio. Then in the second sprint, you might up it to 4 days of weight training and 4 days of cardio. And in the third sprint, you might do 5 days of weight training and 5 days of cardio. And this approach is good for guys who are serious because it requires short-term sacrifices as you would in a cut. But that's a trade-off for long-term results. Because unlike a cut, you're not just acting healthy for a few months, you're building habits that last, so that when you get to where you want to be, you stay there. So which approach is best for you? I think my approach is best, but it's a little more complicated, and it'll take some thinking and planning on your part. And cutting is good if you think you can dive in the deep end and swim. And for anyone who's like me, I wouldn't recommend the weight loss approach because you won't get that muscular aesthetic physique that you're after. But any is better than none. And if you just start with one, at least you built some momentum so that further down the line, if you want to change your approach, you easily can.